you fool! You fell victim to one of the classic blunders. The most famous is never get involved in a land war in Asia, but only slightly less well known is this: never go in against
A tribble?
when death is on the line.
You ever heard the quote from Richard Nixon's former special counsel, Charles Colson? He ended up converting to Christianity later on in life, and he has a really funny quote where he says, "I know the resurrection is a fact, and Watergate proved it to me, because 12 men testified that they had seen Jesus raised from the dead. Then they proclaimed that truth for 40 years, never once denying it. Every one of them was beaten, tortured, stoned, and put in prison. They would not have endured it if it weren't true. Watergate embroiled 12 of the most powerful men in the world, and they couldn't keep alive for 3 weeks. You're telling me 12 apostles could keep alive for 40 years? Absolutely impossible."
No, the 12 apostles did not testify as to having seen the risen Christ. We typically think of testify in the legal sense, which is to swear under oath that what you are saying is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But even in its non-legal meaning, to testify at least implies the verification of the person testifying. That what is being claimed is their own words and thoughts. We have no such record of account when it comes to anything attributed to the 12 apostles. There's only one single source for any such claims: the Bible. And the Bible is absolutely not a reliable or historical text. We can be fairly certain through historical dating of the Gospels that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not in fact written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. All of the Gospels are believed to have been written between 70 and 110 CE. That would be between 40 and 80 years after Jesus' crucifixion, when all of the apostles were likely already dead. Even if not martyred, they would have been dead by old age or disease by then. Even the titles, Gospel according to Matthew, Gospel according to Mark, etc., these were added later, likely in the 2nd century, as the Christian community sought to identify and authenticate their sacred texts. This shows that the Gospels were assembled much later, not by the apostles they were named for, but, at best, based on hearsay accounts of things that they claimed during their lives and throughout their evangelizing. This turns the accounts written about in the Gospels into one big game of multi-centuries long telephone. He heard from him, who heard from her, who heard from someone else, that they said this thing, kinda in this way, with this overall meaning, so you can rewrite it as such, and then it gets rewritten, edited, altered, and omitted over the centuries, translated to dozens of different languages, with so much being lost in the translation process, etc., 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 until you get to the various versions of the Bible that we have today. All of which claim to be the closest to the original, at least getting the original meaning and intent correct, while at times wildly disagreeing with all of the other versions. When it comes to different English renderings of the Bible, there are easily over 50 major English versions commonly used today. And if you include all the historical translations, revisions, and niche versions, the number can be well into the hundreds, possibly over 900 different versions of the Bible. So no, we don't have 12 people testifying that they had seen the risen Jesus and then sticking to their story for years until their deaths. What we have are myths based on stories, based on biased translations of unreliable and thoroughly altered texts, based on anonymous writings, based on hearsay accounts, based on decades outdated claims of ideologically motivated faith pushers, all of which is hand-waved aside based on the fervent belief that God is real and has used his omnipotent power in order to make sure that his holy word has remained unaltered and perfect throughout the centuries up to today. So long as you're talking about my preferred version of the Bible and not all of those heretical versions of all the other Christian denominations. But what? Because the schmucks involved in Watergate couldn't keep their stories straight under intense interrogation, you think that automatically means that religious leaders intent on maintaining their influence and propagating their faith can't stick to their grift? I mean, hell, L. Ron Hubbard stuck to his Thetan bullshit all the way up until his death. Does that mean Scientology must be true? David Koresh died proclaiming that he was God and maintained that claim throughout a 51-day standoff between the Branch Davidians and federal agents that ended with him getting firebombed into oblivion. And I could go on and on. There's no shortage of examples of religious figures, faith pushers, and cult leaders who have been willing to die for a lie. Something Christians often like to insist that no one would ever willingly do, specifically in reference to the apostles who were supposedly martyred for their faith. That is, if you believe the Bible's account on them being martyred for their faith, or the church's insistence upon it, which I see no reason why I should give that book or that church even the faintest amount of credit.